Ready? It was all a dream, a horrible, horrible dream.
Uzalo is a South African television drama that airs Monday to Friday at 8:30 on the channel SABC1. The show is a painful reminder that the South African television industry is refusing to evolve. Instead, they rely on overused tropes and seem to copy and paste the same storylines and altering them to produce a bland story. Let us break down what I dislike about the show. Initially, the premise of the show was about a bold and authentic narrative that tells the story about two families, the Mdletshes and the Zulus. The show chronicles how their two sons were actually switched at birth. In particular, Ayanda and Uzalo. One son was raised in a Christian household, while the other was raised by a criminal family. As the show progresses, we see these two sons building bonds in worlds that they were destined to leave, as they eventually needed to find out the truth and reunite with their actual birth parents. This premise was simple, and it was effective in creating nuance and stakes in the characters of these individuals. Ayanda, who was raised in a morality-filled family, was forced to accept that his actual birth parents are dangerous criminals, while Uzalo has to live with a family set in morals whilst he was raised in a world where morality was like a losing Orlando Pirates. It had no point. Now, you might think that this premise is not enough to carry a show for this long. And you might be correct to think that, and in fact you are 100% correct. What? Did you think I was going to lift my anime glasses and start correcting you? Hell no, I do have a heart. I'm sorry to disappoint, but I will not be insulting you this time. Because your mama made sure I did that to her. Anyways, as much as the original premise of the show was intriguing, the premise was not going to hold up an entire show, as it was inevitable that the show was going to be a long-running TV show. Just like its equally sleep-inducing sister show Generations: The Legacy. Because the show ended up being so long, the writers quickly ran out of story, and it was becoming difficult to tell a story after the original storyline about the fertility of the boys was disclosed. Because of this, the show had to invent new ways to keep itself going, and the writers had no choice but to rely on the boring tropes that are plaguing the South African television industry. Maybe we should cut our losers and just watch Gomorrah instead. The show is enjoyed by a lot of people, and in a good world this show should have ended after a few seasons, because as I stated, after the fertility of Ayanda and Uzalo was disclosed, we did not need to have the story continue. The name of the show is called Uzalo after all, a name that literally means birth. But now, can someone tell me, where is the concept of birth in the show right now? And even if that concept was still present, why is it not the focal point of the story? Maybe it is because they are too focused on gangsters not receiving any punishment for their actions. The characters of the show are almost a parody of what they were intended to be initially, as originally, characters like the Mdletshe family and the Zulu family represented the strange duality and somewhat complexity of morality. The Mdletshe family was supposed to represent the virtue of the South African family. However, as the show progressed, it is quickly turned into its head as the writers are shown to somewhat mock the zombified South African family. The family was supposed to represent pure morality and good faith. However, as the show progressed, it is quickly shown that this family is not as good as they show us to be. No, they are human. And as humans they have flaws just like every one of us. And this dismantles the zombified version of the South African family. While the Zulu family was positioned as this gangster family who is positioned as this evil, greedy family who only care about their money. However, if we start to peel back the layers, we start to see this family in a different light. As much as they are involved in crime, they are in essence a family who have the same troubles and tribulations that any other family has. As much as they are positioned as the antagonists, you cannot help but sympathize with them and actually start caring about them as human beings, which I think was genius. Now, whether this was the intention of the writers is a story for another day. The show is frustrating in that it is a symptom of a larger problem in how South African TV shows are written and positioned. Most of the show's plot revolve around a seemingly unstoppable evil villain who has never received any form of punishment for his actions. This might be great to establish him as a foe, but if the character is written as this unstoppable demigod, then it will be difficult for us, the audience, to view this as someone who we can relate to. This form of narrative is dangerous, because since your villain is portrayed as unstoppable and invincible, your story will lack stakes and the story will become predictable. So every season when there is a new threat to overthrow the villain, the audience just waits to inevitably see the villain escape justice, just like he or she always does. I want to conclude this by saying this: I can understand how writing a show like Uzalo can be difficult, and even the most skilled writers can get burned out and inevitably succumb to the pressures of writing a long-running show. It is for that reason why I feel as if this method of storytelling needs to end. We cannot have long-running shows like Generations, The Legacy, Isadingo, Mavhango and many more, because by God these shows are too long, and they can get lost in their own narratives, so long that they lost any semblance of cohesive storytelling. But I will make a follow-up video explaining my issues with the South African film industry. For now I say goodbye, and please remember to take my words with high praise as I'm right, and if you disagree then you are a donkey. Now with all that being said, this is your friendly neighborhood space ghost.